Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Singh and in this video we shall discuss current affairs and Gazette for 23rd February 2022. Before we begin, let me welcome each of you here. Good evening to Amlan, Netra, Vakram, Kriti, Vivek. Very good inputs by you, Vivek. Very nice. And Ashish, good evening. We also welcome other participants here. Hi Mithun, good evening. And then we have in participants answering Lost Soul again. Good evening and welcome to all of you. Welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. Hope your preparation is going fine and well. Let's discuss current affairs for today. What do we have today? Today we have three updates for you. One is data privacy control. Some new acts done by Apple, Facebook. Will that impact, and Google as well, will that impact the data privacy? We will understand. A very catchy one. The second one is on India's statement on Ukraine crisis. It's developing and what India has to say, we'll understand this. Could we criticize India on this? Let's see that. And coastal regulation zone, right? This regulation itself is under criticism. We will understand what are the issues here. This day in history dedicated to Sardar Ajit Singh. Feature news for today is on government capital expenditure push, right? We will understand in this thematic article in totality what has been the reason for expenditure, especially capital expenditure increase in the last 3-4 years, and how it has impacted the economy. Is it going to propel the economy in the way we have envisaged? And what are the various cons associated? Government capital expenditure push in the feature news today. Image of the day, Char Chinari from Srinagar. Terms and concepts. Panruti cashews in news. Conversion therapy. Omicron subvariant and endemic phase of Omicron of Corona and Kavach system, all foreign news. Editorials that we have, one on labor laws, the second one is on looking outward, all right, and the third one is on budget related to the featured news. Today's case study is on a traveler from Kerala going to Mount Everest base camp. Let's understand each of them now. The first update for us today, hi Kanupriya, Ravi, Pooja, good evening and welcome. The first update for all of us is on data privacy control. I would like to remind everybody of you of one important update that Facebook was launching, right? It was the policy of introducing internet to rural countryside in India. It was by Facebook, and many others had also proposed. They proposed free internet availability to all countryside. And then there was a mass level opposition against this, calling for net neutrality. Right. So when we look at these tech giants, what do they want? They want the availability of humongous amount of users on their internet, on their servers, on their platforms, on their network. So Facebook was proposing that throughout the whole length and breadth of India, if people are not getting availability of internet, if people in rural areas are not getting availability of internet, something which is a basic necessity for today, digital public good. It's a public good, but it is not being made available by the government. We will provide it for free for everybody. But with one condition. See, the condition was never mentioned, but this is how it happens. When Facebook says we will provide free internet, it does not mean it will have neutral content placed in the internet for everybody. It will provide internet in its own platform, right? It will provide wired cables everywhere. But if we have various spots in which internet is available, they will all be connected to each other, absolutely. But they will be through Facebook's network. So Facebook would be developing a bigger platform on which you would be able to get news items. Yes. You would be able to access shopping, commerce, absolutely. You would be able to get government services, all of it. But it would be Facebook's platform. Now, will Facebook be promoting the content that is of its rival company? Not sure. Will Facebook be promoting commerce of those people who have tied up with Facebook for ads? Absolutely yes. This is the reason net neutrality was asked for, not only in India, around the world. That neutrality, internet is neutral. Internet ought to be neutral. What about these smaller players, smaller stakeholders who cannot afford putting up an ad on Facebook? Their platforms would not be available here on Facebook, right? To people, to masses. And people also deserve equality, right, on internet. So net neutrality is what was called for, and this project was, it got vanished. Now, in this context only, you should look at this new development. This new development is that these organizations, so which are these big companies, Facebook, Apple, Google, and a couple of more of them, right? Now see, and Amazon, right? These are the giants. If you look at the people who are top 10 earners and top 10 asset holders around the world, we have Facebook's owner, we have Amazon's owner, we have both of Google, and what is the other one? And then, yeah, of course, we have Apple. Of course, all of these people are involved there. Top 10 amongst the holders of assets around the world. That means they control a lot of wealth. They control a lot of say in technology world, right? We have discussed this in metaverse discussion as well. Now, just to let you know the model of each of them, Facebook has its own ecosystem and it has got ads displayed in it. It also has innumerable billions of users, and these users are the ones which provide data to it. On the other hand, if you look at Amazon people come and purchase. That is how it stores data of quite a lot of people around the world. Google as well has a data control policy and mechanism. But what about Apple? They largely rely on devices, right? So what Apple has done right now, the update here is this, that Apple has created an option for all the users to ensure that if they do not want themselves to be tracked or their data to be tracked, it can be done here, right? Their data won't be tracked. Their movement, their clicking everywhere on the device, that data will not be tracked and that data will not be stored at places. So this development by Apple has impacted Facebook stocks as well. Facebook, Meta stock in fact. And this is the kind of impact that the technology world has received. On the other hand, Google and other companies, Amazon, they have declared that they will also upgrade the platform in some way or the other, right? For the user, for the benefit of privacy of user. However, let us look at a closer scrutiny of it, right? All right, we have yes, Free Basic. That was the name. Absolutely, Vivek. Thank you. Yuvraj, we can get the PDF on the website. Hi, Tiasha. Good evening. All right. On the website, there is a section called as resources section, and right there you would find current affairs and then a Gazette. And if you click there, you will find this content uploaded. You want the PDF, it is available for free if you put your phone number and get the password on your phone. All right. So moving ahead in this now. So what is the update from here is that since Apple has initiated this new ways of privacy, respecting people's privacy, Facebook has been indirectly impacted. Its user base, its economy base, it has gotten impacted. So Meta is the platform, not Facebook anymore, right? On the other hand, there is something called as cookies, right? Cookies. Whatever we serve, wherever we go online and we look up, all that data, our IP address goes and gets stored at the platform where we are looking. And next time we go, right, the platform will show us only those kind of ads which we actually are inclined to look at, right? For example, if I am looking for the slippers, I would always get the ad of slippers of various companies. In fact, those ones which are tied up with that platform. You understand this? So this is how it is. But now this is where companies like Google have said that they will increase some of the other compliances where these cookies, third-party cookies, will not be stored. So what are third-party cookies? See, one of the cookies are one where Amazon. Suppose it is Amazon. Now Amazon is the one which is storing it right here, right? This is first-party cookie. But on the other hand, if there is a social media platform which is operating at various levels, right? For example, an ad-driven campaign which is available on various websites, and that is storing the data, transferring the data for other purposes, that this third-party cookie will not be available, right? So this is one of the developments that Google has said right now, right? So this is one of them. The other development that they have said is that this is called as privacy sandbox that I'm mentioning right now. They have also said that they will replace the present level of cookies with the federated learning of cohorts. So what is this federated learning of cohorts? Instead of pointing to a user, me, and saying this guy looks for slippers and shoes online, instead of spotting one user, what they would do is that they would create cohort of users and they would say that these are the kind of ads which should be transferred to specific, a cohort of users. Cohort means a group of users. So one person will not be targeted, a group will be targeted. So what? That is my question. So what? Even in this case, you have the data of the user, you are getting profited. So this is the controversy which, which says that you probably you are gaining a larger access of the data here, right? So this is a criticism of federated learning of cohort. They're trying to confuse each of us here. Now, one thing good, that is that categorization, when they do this categorization in their browser, Google's browser, right? So they will ensure that they exclude the categorization on the basis of the gender of the person, their religion, their race. These categories will be excluded. So people's data will not be kept on the basis of their religion, and then, accordingly not curating that kind of content which is, segregating them even further, right? So this is a good development here. However, if you see FLOC, flock, federated learning of cohorts, this is, giving the control in Google's hand. On the other hand, Apple is ensuring that it provides greater autonomy to people. Good, Apple is known for this. But Facebook getting impacted, Google's business trying to increase in some or the other manner. All right. So this leads to financial losses, right? The assets, liabilities, and the stock market, all of it crashes because of these moves. So Meta, Facebook's parent, is expected to get a financial hit from Apple's move in the order of $10 billion. Itne mein we are also laying down our fab units in India, yeah. So that is the kind of loss that Facebook is looking at. Concentration of data, right? So privacy sandbox is also in a way phasing out cookies, but then federated learning of cohorts is ensuring that data is still available. So data monopoly exists with Google, right? So this is one disadvantage to some organizations and advantage to the other, because their models are such, models of operation are such. Apple itself will also get impacted, right? But Apple's main work is hardware device, right? So this is it, but largely placing the control of the user on themselves, right? So this is a good development, right? So this is the update. All right. Tech giants Apple and Google have recently taken steps to give users greater control over their use of data they generate online. All right. So this is the update. All right. What else is there for us? The second one is on Ukraine. Quite a popular issue. See, what I think about an issue like this from the perspective of UPSC, I've always thought, how is it beneficial for us? How is it going to impact us politically? Yeah, every day we see, somewhere we see Russians doing the trials for intercontinental ballistic missiles. Someday we see the trains, and then the tanks are placed over it. Someday we see the border crisis. All of that, very Maggi masala available here. But is it going to help us in the examination? And if yes, then how? This is my question. Now, ironically, these questions will not come directly in the examination, but the ideas that we pick up, the keywords, phrases, or the content of, or the kind of essence that we pick up, this gets carried out in many answers that we carry. And this international issue for Ukraine, this will be the one which will be applicable for internal security for India. It will also be applicable for international relations, policy, government policy, each of them, ethics as well, right? So start picking up content for those, because otherwise I've seen all of us, we keep reading a lot, but then what is to be processed and kept for examination, that becomes very important. So right now, if you remember, we had spoken of astute diplomacy. Remember? If you remember, we had spoken of strategic autonomy or strategic what is vagueness? There is a strategic vagueness that India has. I had a keyword here, I'm forgetting the word. So strategic, all right, I'll remember it and I'll share. So once we appreciate this move, and right now we can look at the other side where we can actually criticize a move like this, right? So when we speak of the world or the countries which are dubious in nature, double standards, we see India's double standards, which have been represented time and again, but then astute diplomacy is what we would favor it with. And now we would say, if required, if there is a war that happens and India gets impacted, we would say that this was possibly a mistake. So let us understand what is the stand here. See, United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting on this, on Ukraine crisis, because escalation is really going at a higher level. And Russia, yesterday you people only mentioned very clearly that both these areas, right, they are a part of the of Ukraine. Both the areas were declared as independent areas by Russia. So in news, what came as, what is India's stand on an issue like this? So when this comes as an issue, then we look at how India looks at the issue, right? So first thing is that India says that all the parties must meet and de-escalate. All right, de-escalate, I agree, we all agree. But then what about the territorial integrity of any country? This is a very exclusive and inclusive part of Ukraine, right? The what is the name? Luhansk and Donetsk region, both of them part of the Donbas region of Ukraine, east of Ukraine. Both of them are integral parts, and territorial integrity of Ukraine is very important. This is what India has always said, respecting each other's integrity, right? It is mentioned in the Shimla agreement as well. It is mentioned in the Lahore Pact as well between India and Pakistan. It is also mentioned as a part of Panchsheel Treaty. Wherever India goes, territorial integrity, non-indulgence in internal affairs, that plays an important, significant role. So right here, India should have actually spoken that Ukraine's territorial integrity is important. It must be respected. It was nowhere mentioned in India's update. Then India never mentioned Russia specifically on domination of these issues or their involvement in the internal affairs of Ukraine, right? Because these are, although the places are Russian speaking, but they are integral to Ukraine, no. Now look at how you should defend a thing like this, a stand like this. Does India not have a part which are Tamil speaking? Yes, of course. And does Sri Lanka not have those areas speaking Tamilians? Can Sri Lanka declare Tamil Nadu or part of India, which says that we want more territorial autonomy as its own? India will say respect our integrity. Similarly, what about the part which Punjab speaking in Indian Punjab and West Punjab, that is Pakistan's Punjab, both of them a prosperous area. Can Pakistan declare independence just because this people want, some specific group of people want greater autonomy? Can Pakistan say that yes, they have, we declare them as independent countries? No, India will not like it. What about Nagaland or Mizoram? People here reside in both the countries, no? In Myanmar and India both. Look at Kashmir. If people speak Urdu on the west side and the east side, both of them, right? If you remember, we had covered an article on a specific area in Kashmir. What is the reason for militancy in a specific area? It was the terrain, it was the language, tough to differentiate the Indian side and the people residing in Pakistan area, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So point is, when India is not able to look at or not able to tolerate these kind of incidences in our own country, we should also respect internationally. But India did not do that, right? So this is the statement that India issued on Ukraine on de-escalation, immediate de-escalation. See, India has got its representation in Ukraine as well. You people mentioned that around $2.5 billion of trade. Ukraine, a number of pharmaceutical and medical students graduating there, around 20,000 of population, right? This area is also rich in mineral resources. The east of it, we are talking of these two particular areas, the Donbas region, which have presence of iron, which have presence of coal, so very strategic, right? Ukraine is the same place where the Chernobyl disaster meltdown, it happened in 1986, right? The European countries helped, USA helped, and India also helped in those times. So also an important strategic place for some arms import for India, because strategically, if Ukraine was a part of USSR, Russia would be making some of the weapons, and some of the components of weapons would also be made by Ukraine. So India maintains a good relation rapport with Ukraine. In fact, Ukraine had a decent, see, a quick background to what is this crisis. I keep explaining many parts of it every time. So another part here is that Ukraine had decently good relations with Russia. In fact, it is only 30 years for its disintegration, no, only 30 years. Primarily, it is the culture, and culture cannot be eliminated. Culture exists. Remember, we had spoken about the culture of people living in Afghanistan. They cannot be bifurcated through boundary lines, right? So the culture that people have is that of Pashtun tribes. Similarly, the origin of the people here in the east of, especially east of Ukraine, they are Russian speaking, right? The culture is very similar and it cannot be alienated. But then territorial integrity is another component which plays very significant role in modern world. So that should also be respected. So what has happened between Ukraine and Russia in the past 15 years, 10 years, that has been the determinant. There are three major kind of political parties in Ukraine. One of them favors what European Union stands for, what Western world stands for. Another one favors Russia very much. And the third one are the emerging group of political parties which speak of regionalism, only Ukraine's significance. This is what they speak of. So the one Viktor Yanukovych, right, the ex president, 2014 ousted president, he was the one who was pro-Russian. So what he did was beforehand, he said that we will have a pact with the European Union to merge with them, and suddenly, and there would be gas pipelines, etc., whatever. But then suddenly Russia and Ukraine had a pact by which, now look at this pact happened between 2010 and 2014 when Viktor Yanukovych, the pro-Russian president, was in charge there. So Russia and Ukraine had the pact through which Crimea, this region, Crimean Peninsula is the region, the Black Sea region, this is the place, Kerch Strait, this is the place where both the countries have got humongous presence of navy. Just before the pre-exam, I had stated that this place could be important for mapping because the next place for, a hotshot place for war could be this. Possibly. So this was one of the places where the borders were to be demarcated, where the marine, the seas, the high seas, where in fact the navy was to be demarcated. Who would own what level of navy? What would be part of Russia? What would be part of Ukraine? And this is where the pact between both the countries happened. Look at this. What happened was Russia said we will give you subsidized fuel, subsidized gas. They said fine. And on the other hand, Ukraine said, we will give you wider access to Crimea, right? So naval bases at Crimea and availability of naval dockyards would be high for you. So this Black Sea region would widely be available to Russia. Very happy with it. So otherwise, Russia has only a smaller component in this Crimea, this Black Sea region. And now with availability of naval dockyards at Crimea, it has a wider presence. Now in 2013, what happened? This was it. And USA, other European countries were always looking at this. 2013, there was already a pact between European Union and Ukraine to get better integrated with each other. And this is where Viktor Yanukovych took a U-turn. He said, no, we are going closer to Russia, not European Union. And that is when there was a rebel. That is when there was a protest. So Euromaidan, those protests happened in Kiev and many other places in Ukraine. They say, why are you doing this? Russia is not who we want to move towards, right? We want to move towards the European Union. And slowly and steadily, so he got ousted. He ran away to Russia and many other ministers ran away to Russia. This is what happened. On the other hand, at the same time, there was a protest happening in Crimea as well, right? Crimea. And this protest largely was on the lines that we want to, move away from Ukraine, right? So Crimea was very important, strategic to Russia because of the naval presence, increased presence in Black Sea region. So Russia said, fine, we will very strategically take over this part. And Russia indirectly conducted a referendum also over here. People voted in favor of moving out. And then this has become, it has been annexed by Russia, 2014. This is what happened. So Crimea was taken over and it irked the Western world like anything, right? They were not happy with this kind of domination over Ukraine. So 2013-14 onwards, there always been a crisis in this region. And this has only highlighted right now because of military presence towards the east and towards the north, where there is Belarus, and towards the east, because east area, these are the two places, the Donbas region, where there are the protesting forces located. Majorly they are Russian speaking, and on the other hand, when Russia says that we empathize with your cause, all the more people will want to become a part of you. So this is what has happened. Russia has the context of 1991. In 1991, when when USSR got fragmented into 15 countries, Russia being the major one, the other 14 also, many of them were incorporated in NATO forces. So NATO's initiated in around 15 few countries, and now it is a member union of around 30 countries. And many of these countries were the backyard of Russia. Russia wouldn't have liked it. It didn't like it. Now it is the time to pay back. Right, so this is what Russia is doing. It has got few things to lose, but Ukraine has got further things to lose. See, Russian economy is 1/10 that of European Union, 1/10, yet a greater presence here. In fact, European Union also does not want USA to participate in many ways, and that is why they have different models. Normandy model, right? Normandy talks. They are, they are the ones in which Germany, France, and Ukraine and Russia are participating. So there are internal differences between European Union and USA as well. Why is Russia negotiating with USA? USA's president. Why not directly with Ukraine and some major stakeholders in Europe? Right? So multiple issues, and this is largely about the culture of the country. This is also about autonomy, right? This is about maintaining peace and integrity, the integrity of the territorial sovereignty, and looking at which country should be participating in which capacity, right? So if you look at India's role, maybe you could look at what is the need. See, it is not that by whim or fancy the foreign minister or the foreign secretary, Mr. Shringla, they would say anything. It is a very well strategized move, because India looks at its stakes with Russia, it looks at its stakes with USA, it looks at its stake with European Union, each of them, right? So this becomes very important for India, and that is why when the need is for you to protect India's move, you will protect it. And when the need is to see that yes, war has happened and India could have played a proactive role, there you mentioned that this could have taken better shape from India's end. All right. So Eastern Ukraine is very important, mineral rich region, both of these places, and many people of Russian origin after World War II, they all settled towards this area only, Ukraine and Russia, of course, right? So this is why this place has more of Russian speaking people. So do people from Ukraine want to move towards European Union or Russia? What is the stand? See, largely, there are political polls conducted. It is very absurd. Some people say this side, some people say that side, right? India's statement, India says it is a matter of deep concern, right? And these developments had potential to undermine peace and security in the region. India has not condemned Russia's statement of recognition of two separatist region, Donetsk and Luhansk, right? And India has talked about these developments without naming Russia's actions. See, so look at how India condemns China when China encroaches upon India's border. In fact, here there is not only encroachment, there is indirect funding of it. You are present at Belarus border. Imagine that. And Belarus is not we are, for example. India has done that, by the way. India was also at Bhutan border. India was at Bhutan border trying to defend Bhutan's, province, right, against China, 2017-18, right? So, without naming Russia, and seems to a violation of sovereign nation's territorial integrity and breach of international law and agreements. All right, Minsk agreements also, both the accords, Minsk 1 was not followed and Minsk 2 also was not followed because of the confusion between both the countries. Whereas on one hand, Ukraine says Russia must remove its military, back, and this is only after that, Ukraine would be able to give some autonomy and representation. But autonomy also will not be complete autonomy. On the other hand, Russia says you give the autonomy first, declare them as autonomous regions, and after that we will move our forces. So wahi hai, it was pehle murgi hai ya pehle anda. That is the problem here, and both of them are very much involved, right? So who is it going to help? It is not going to help anybody here. So 20,000 Indian students available living here and looking back to coming to India. Escalation of this diplomatic crisis between countries. The statement underlines India's insistence on diplomacy Military escalation should be avoided. Escalation, de-escalation is what India has looked forward for, right? And there are a couple of groups, for example, Normandy format and trilateral group, where Russia, Russian Federation, and one organization for security in Europe. This organization, they all are looking at protecting the peace in east of Europe. So yesterday itself we looked at one editorial. No, it very well criticized India's stand. It said that India must not view the East European countries and Central Asian countries from the eye of Russia. They have got their own presence. They have their technological potential, their military potential, their capacity to do business with other countries. So they should not be viewed from the eyes of Russia only. Okay. All right. India did not use the word territorial integrity and sovereignty, and India's stand may be viewed as condoning Russia's action. All right. Diplomatic dilemma. All right. So this is the update from here. All right. CRZ rules. Third update. Third update is from coastal regulation zone rules. All right. So let's see what you people are mentioning here. Strategic ambiguity. Absolutely, friends. Great. Sam, good evening. I don't see you these days. Cohorts like on the basis of demographics, location, sir. Cohort on the basis of demographic location, demography, yes. Location, yes. Various other parameters that you could look at. For example, age category, the kind of devices they opt for, or the paying capacity. Each of them are a category in itself. For example, you go to the airport and you see your devices are, your baggages are checked. So in case your baggage finds some expensive items, you would be rated as a person who has high affording capacity. And if your baggages do not carry those items which are expensive, then they would be, you would be rated as low paying capacity. Even in that case, you are a consumer, right? If you're not on the table, you are on the, if you're not on the table, then you're on the platter, right? So that is the concept. All right. Hi Saurabh, good evening. Tiasha, Vivek, Hima, absolutely. Bang on strategic ambiguity. All right. Babani, good evening. Ravi says India has dealt with its internal problems more wisely with maturity than any of its counterparts. Yes, yes. And that is why we are such a diverse nation. See, Russia majorly has Russian people speaking Russian language. All the European countries are, there are a few models of, presence. So one is the melting pot model, right? Have you heard of this melting pot? In a melting pot, all the cultures come and they mix. And then there is a model in which we have, what is that model? In which all the fruit salad model, in which, all the fruits exist in its own, quality. They do not get mixed. They do not become khichdi. They are not a melting pot, right? So this is the model in which India provides diversity, linguistic groups, religion, race, color, clothing, everything. We are, and this is how we are trying to handle so many issues in the country. So look at the issue of hijab ban itself. The government now is trying to mold itself and say, yes, we can mold this. It was such a sad thing that against few girl students, FIR was lodged because they were still wearing hijab. Look at the right of education. So government it back traced on its own, or it clarified its stand. That would be the better statement to make here. So this is how diverse we are as a country, and we have handled it well. Right? All right, Ravi says, can Russia be removed from UNSC like happened in G8? Oh, this is something. Russia, see, G7, G8 grouping was of those countries itself. But United Nations is a group of around 190, 200 countries, right? So a country which has got a permanent role in United Nations Security Council, removal of that country, you don't know how it happens. All right. All right. Ashutosh says, my point of view, the whole crisis is created by USA because of NATO. NATO is made for USSR, but after disintegration, no role of it. Yes. So the point that Ashutosh has mentioned is also important. That is that there was a pact. We had discussed this once very clearly, that there was a pact between Russia and USA and European Union and NATO, each of them. There was a pact which mentioned that that the NATO would not be extended further towards the east, 1997 onwards. And Russia had showed these documents again to USA, European Union. What is the reason that they are extending the region of influence for themselves, right? The buffer region, as you call it. So this was against the pact. And yes, Russia was not as powerful then. It is not the most powerful country in the region, but it has got strategic military presence. It has got friends in Belarus. That is the reason that it is, extending this kind of force there. So there is a mistake on the other side as well. It's a part of diplomacy, right? If the situation like Chinese army, we are going to create organization like NATO or deploy Chinese army in reflection of Pakistan, Nepal. What should be India's stand? Let it happen. India is all well prepared. Theater commands. All right. Amnan says it's the last resort for Russia. Melting pot and salad bowl. Yes, melting pot and salad bowl model. All right. So keep mentioning this. See, for example, countries like, can you give me the example of melting pot model and salad bowl model? Meanwhile, Snapshot 3 is on coastal regulation zones. These zones and these rules themselves have been criticized because, see, what has happened is that a lot of communities have built infrastructure along the coast. But these coasts are very, very vulnerable. Not only coast being vulnerable, the ecology there and the kind of economic activities there, and see, more so the presence of water. Jal hai to jeevan hai, right? Not only marine but human life also. Jal hai to, sewage waste can be transported very easily. It can move from one place to another very easily. So along coastal areas, the 7,500 kilometer long boundary that we have had a lot of construction along all the coastline areas. In fact, these are the areas for marine trade also. India's 80, 85, 90% of trade happens through marine areas, international trade, and they become significant. Not only that, tourism, right? Lofty bungalows, all of them created at these places. This is why it is in news, because of one of the union ministers, their bungalow, it was a complaint that they've constructed their bungalow very close to the coast, right? Now, this is where what brings to light is coastal regulation zone. What is the regulation zone? What are these norms? So the norms are dependent totally on the kind of place it is. Coastal zones have been earmarked in the latest notification as different areas, 4 different kind of areas. The criticism earlier was that we would treat all the coastline areas at the same platform. For example, if an area of Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands, these places can be considered as coastal. So can be another area in Goa, right? Beaches. But look at the kind of difference that both these places have. I would like to spot something. One is the presence of corals, biodiversity at these places. They are, the Lakshadweep reefs are completely coral in nature, and Andaman are coral and volcanic both. So there is greater diversity here. The protection should be meted out at a greater level. On the other hand, Goa coast. Now these are the places where some tribes would be existing at some time. So they should be protected at a different level, because we have had traditional construction, we have had modern construction, their construction, and that should also be respected, right? So this is another one. And then those areas which have not been impacted by any traditional developments or coastal ecology, how should they be treated? They have been segregated in 4 coastal zones. This is a good development. However, the area in which no construction should have happened, that has been decreased with time. This is a major criticism of coastal regulation zone. See, the government is also under pressure because of illegal activities happening around. Anything that is happening in those zones which has not been allowed, it becomes illegal. Whether you are doing construction, tourism, business, right, building industries, all of them. So no development zone. Those are the zones where no development has to happen, right? So when you look at eco-sensitive areas, see, these are those areas. Eco-sensitive areas are those areas which are demarcated as coastal regulation zone 1, right? And these are the areas where what you can actually make or create is mangrove walks, tree huts, trails. Only that much is allowed, right? And sea links, sea harvesting, desalination plants and roads on stilts are also allowed. Some of these structures are allowed, and then you can also have nuclear installations, all of them created very close. There are some exceptions to it. Rest apart, nothing can be done. These are those places where the the biodiversity is very, very high. On the other hand, coastal regulation zone 2, substantially built up area can now increase the floor area ratio, floor space index, and build resorts. So what are they saying right now is that if you have a space, an infrastructure place in coastal regulation zone 2, what you can do it is that you can increase the floor space index. That means you can build vertically to increase the efficiency of that area itself, right? All right. Now, this has also reduced the no development zone to 50 meters. So this zone earlier, was no development zone 300 meters, then reduced to 50 meters, 100 meters, and then now to 50 meters. So this means earlier there was no development that was to happen up to here 300 meters, but people had already constructed up to very close proximity. So now the government, in fact, it had to reduce down on this, the area within which no construction has to happen, right? So there is something called as high tide line and low tide line. High tide line and low tide line, right? So low tide line is, when there's a low tide, the water retracts, and when there's a high tide line, the water goes, within the, it inundates the land area. So from the high tide line, 50 meters has to be the no development zone in specific cases. All right. This is the update. Many prohibited activities within coastal regulation zones, new industries, expansion, oil storage, hazardous substance, land reclamation, dumping, mining, drawing water or plastic disposal. These are not allowed in these areas. All right. Today, this day in history dedicated to the birth of Ajit Singh, uncle of Bhagat Singh, and this gentleman gave the right background for the life and inspiration of Bhagat Singh, right? So he was one of those people who participated in freedom movement. He also initiated a couple of movements, Bharat Mata Society in 1907, right? And can you name, by the way, the association which was initiated and Bhagat Singh was a part of? HRSA, full form of it? All right. So a nationalist again, Sardar Ajit Singh, and in fact he passed away the day, immediately after Pandit Nehru's Trust with Destiny speech. There are few speeches which are very, very relevant, which are very important. They must be listened to. The speech is available online as well, YouTube as well. The speech is available in written form as well. Similarly, many other speeches by a few of them by I Have a Dream, by Mr. Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream. Similarly, another speech by very important 1970s, the president of USA who was assassinated, right? A speech by him. What was the name of the speech? What you can ask, not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country, right? A very, very beautiful speech. Who was the president assassinated? USA. All right, feature news for day is on government capital expenditure push. Beautiful feature news, understanding what is the reason that there has been an increase of capital expenditure and proportional decline in revenue expenditure. What is something that government has now realized it wants to do? What is the way in which capital expenditure is getting distributed in various segments of society? When I asked you 5 more important places, so certain 5 important places have been impacted. We will understand each of them, right? And we will also understand how we are in a trap and we are trying to get out of the trap with the help of capital expenditure. What are the concerns raised? All of it in the feature news for today. All right, image of the day on Char Chinari Island. Now this island exists right at Dal Lake. Small island, very small, people can't go there, and you can only witness chinar are those trees which are available in these kind of climatic regions, Kashmir. And if you've seen Mohabbatein, the same chinar leaves used there as well. So there were 4 of them, and then 2 of them got devastated because of the floods, 2014 floods in Kashmir. And now the government there has said that they will be reinstating 2 more chinars, so that the actual name Char Chinar, it finds relevance at that place. When I had gone to Kashmir, I had seen that post-COVID, the whole Dal Lake was full of algae, and the growth, seaweed, weeds growth and water hyacinth growth all because of something maybe also attributed to the kind of eutrophication that is happening there, right? And also maintenance, regular maintenance must happen, otherwise how will the boats be able to run there, right? As it is, during winters the whole lake gets frozen. Tourism is only for 5-6 months, and this is also a popular destination for water sport in this area. So you can look at the ecology, the life, tourism, all dependent on these kind of entities. So good move by the government here. All right. Hindustan Republican Socialist Association. Very nice. Abraham Lincoln, going back way 200 years back. Yes, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you, Ravi and Hima. All right, what else? Okay, yes, you people have given the example of melting pot and salad bowl. All right, melting pot USA, salad bowl India. Ashish says, I think democratic and republic countries are a mixture of melting pot and salad bowls. There are many democratic countries, yet they have become unitary in their cultures, right? Ashish, example of countries like that in European Union, many countries. That is the reason I asked you the example, because if we look at a country like Netherlands, right, Dutch is the language. If you look at Germany, German is the primary language. And if you look at Italy, Italian is the primary language. Similarly, India doesn't have that. Salad bowl, this is what we are. All right. Okay, then we will study. If Hima says that we are different, we are melting pot. Are we melting pot? All right, we will discuss this then. Yes, Amlan, we just read this. Maharashtra government allowed the encroachment of 50 meters from high tide zone. This is what it is. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. So let me clarify this then. In salad bowl, all the entities, they have their own identities. Are bhai, kharbuja can muskmelon mix with watermelon or grapes or apple? No, they are separate entities. They look very good in the diversity, and we all love to eat each of them, and so do mangoes and bananas, right? But in a melting pot, everything melts in the pot. So suppose there's a heated pot, and if you heat all of this same entity here, everything gets melted here. That is the prime difference, and then there'll be a khichdi of it. So these are different models of cultural presence. All right, Ashish says, Hima, India's culture bowl is a melting pot, but India's diversity is salad bowl. We'll discuss this. All right. Terms and concepts. The first term in news is Panruti cashews. These cashews from Tamil Nadu, they have asked for GI tags. See, when we look at these examples, they could be our participants in the prelim examination also, but side by side, start looking at the GI tags in news and looking at how you can use them in the examination. Remember the in detail coverage of the TRIPS agreement, or what do we call as the intellectual property rights in India? Intellectual property rights. So when we look at intellectual property rights, start looking at what are the features of some of the examples. For example, these cashew nuts have extra presence of protein in them, right? Their size is unique. So this is how they can be utilized to export them, to in fact provide them in various parts of the country, right? So better nutrition, better quality, so slightly small in size, have unique value in the market. Gold mine of Cuddalore, Tamil Nadu. All right. Moisture content is also low. That means they, as a dry fruit, they are very good for with their shelf life, and their protein availability is also very high. All right. These are good examples for you. Conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is banned in India. This is what the National Medical Commission has stated in Madras High Court. So what is conversion therapy? Conversion therapy, or there are a couple of more words used around conversion therapy. They all mean that anybody who is a queer, who is LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, plus, each of these communities, any of them they belong to, and we try to treat them. Gay therapy. So if the person has got some ailment, we want to cure them, and this is the name that has been given to cure in an attempt to cure those people who are in this community. Conversion therapy. You are a gay, probably looks like something is wrong with you. We will ensure that through medical treatment you are converted, right, into a normal human being. So all this kind of therapy is actually banned in our country. This is what has been said very clearly by the National Medical Commission. In fact, there was also an awareness campaign which was initiated by medical fraternity to raise awareness for the third gender, the fourth gender in the country, right? The council made its stand clear while making a submission on a recommendation of an expert committee to modify MBBS syllabus so that medical students can be sensitized of sexual orientations of people belonging to LGBTQ plus community, right? So make them more aware instead of saying that, there should be conversion therapy for these people, all right? This should become a part of code of professional ethics and conduct. This reminds me of one article that I wanted to cover. We will cover this someday soon. It was a news of about the oath that people take, and the need to change of the oath the doctors take before they get instituted as doctors. Omicron subvariant BA2. Omicron has been in news because of another subvariant, but see, largely as what we are seeing around USA, Europe and India also, that the economies have opened back again. And not only that, we've also seen lately that the variant of corona is only spreading at specific zones. So where earlier it was treated as a pandemic, related to the disease, and pan throughout the whole world, now it has become endemic. For specific reason, although the governments are not per se declaring it as endemic, but they are looking at restraints, slowly curbing the restraints and enlarging the domain of operations. But yes, along with the presence of these subvariants, the economy is expanding and thinking that it is possibly endemic now, the variant of corona. But can there be possible disruption again and lead to a more deadly virus of corona variant? Yes, it is also possible. That is the update. Kavach system is in news because of it was spoken of clearly by the finance minister. So let us understand this Kavach system. Kavach system is an indigenous train protection system, train collision and avoidance system. This is what it is named as. TCAS, Train Collision and Avoidance System, and this has been developed by India itself, some research institutions, and it has been approved by who? RSDO itself. You should remember this, right? We're a standard accrediting organization for all the railways products, all right? RSDO for the railways, a part of Bureau of Indian Standards. Good example here. So what have they developed is automatic train protection system and movement authority system with speed, collision and signal pass at danger. All right, so what are these three things? Whenever a train moves, see, there are various places in the country which are hot spots for accidents. The reason is a couple of them. First of all, there are trains moving on, there are a couple of tracks only, one track for going and one track for coming. We don't have diversified tracks, and on these tracks, on the going tracks, we have passenger trains also, and we also have the goods train moving. One of the issues of the shortcoming of railway as a logistics carrier is this, that passenger trains are always given a go ahead as compared to the goods trains. They are always given a go ahead. In passenger trains, the subsidy is also there for people. Good trains, these are the places where cross subsidy happens. They're expensive, they're also slow. Look at this. Also, we have only few tracks. This is where you can relate the development of dedicated rail freight corridors. All right, 2 of them getting developed, and we have quite a few, 6 of them total coming up. Dedicated rail freight corridors. So there are places where there is high density of train movement. For example, north of India, Mughal Sarai, or the Deen Dayal Upadhyay railway junction, and places around that complete plain region, high density of movement of trains, especially the passenger trains. One train moves and just 15 kilometers behind it is another train moving, and 15 kilometers behind is another train moving. And one train getting delayed because of any specific issue, there's a whole delay in the whole supply of the trains. And this is what happens. So there are times when the trains, Rajdhani trains, the super fast trains, they run at a very high speed. Now, at times when they run at high speed, there is no awareness to the signaling stations, railway stations, or the guards available if there is another train moving ahead of it or behind it. So, all these trains will be equipped with this train collision avoidance system. Through this, they will be passing on their present location, the speed of movement, and this is how they will be able to control. There will be automatic braking at these trains in case the train overruns the distance it had to run at a particular speed. So that is called as signal, that is called as movement authority. Movement authority means the train was asked to move this particular distance at a particular pace, it has moved beyond that, or it has come in a zone which is closer in proximity to another train. So there should be automatic braking system which should get activated. Movement authority, that is the word. The other one is signal past that danger. That means if the train has crossed a railway fatak, a railway crossing, and at a high speed or uninformed, then there must be some control of this. All these are done through railway collision avoidance system. Speed and collision, all of them also taken care of. This is why in news. Kavach will be installed in some of the trains in the Eastern Central Railway. Same place. Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay, that is Mughal Sarai Junction, Gaya Dhanbad. This grand chord route, those places where there's a high density of train movement, right? This would help us attain zero accidents on railway tracks. Radio communication, microprocessing, global positioning system, all of them integrated. RSDO, research, design and standard organizations. Front rear collisions to be avoided. Great movement. Labor code, labor laws could be good for business in the country. Now, this editorial highlights one important thing, that instead of pointing out at the labor regulations, one could look at the kind of necessities that are actually required for labor development in the country. One simple example of this I was studying somewhere is that if the labor is working for 8 hours or 9 hours at an institution, they are spending 16 extra hours to rest, to rejuvenate, to eat food, to stay, right? All of them. And these places, what are these places? These are largely slums, also called as industrial hostels or workers' hostels or industrial dormitories. These are those places which do not provide the labor the adequate rejuvenation for them to work again, right? It results into greater presence of disease, ill health, right? And then worse conditions for working. So what is required is occupational safety, health, social security, training, apprenticeship, all of them. If you remember, we had covered a snapshot on occupational safety and hazards, procedural safety and hazards. Right, so they also become a part of those kind of norms which must be applicable for all the laborers. Right? There are many companies where the labor codes are not activated because of lesser presence of labor. For example, micro, small and medium industries, no mandatory implementation of certain labor codes, right? No mandatory implementation of occupational safety, health, working hazards. So although they are out of the loop, but even then, such labor laws could be helpful in these places. All right. And ironically, India doesn't provide these facilities for laborers, but developed countries, in fact, a country like China has a better status for laborers in their own countries. Right. And this is where the feature news will speak of exactly this fact, right? Capital expenditure on labor market, labor development. A major point being on looked every time, because the industries have a greater say because of greater lobbying. Looking outward again, all right, this is about the FTA issue. Yes, about the FTA, India's FTA with UAE, and this is the third largest partner, around $60 billion of trade with UAE, and India exporting a lot of items, for example, gems, processed oil, then we have engineering goods, IT services, a lot of it to UAE, right? And the idea is to increase this to $100 billion in the coming few years, 2-3 years. I think 2025, right? So India has been able to mark a good deal through which it will be able to have tariff-free exports of 90% of its exports, right? So this is one, and it has also been able to keep some sensitive items also in the same sensitive items, where it will have greater excise duty, custom duty, while these products are imported in our country, plantation products, dairy products. So this is a good one, right? Many countries, India is conducting these kind of trade agreements, free trade agreements and CEPA with many countries. The idea is to encourage trade and disrupt the supply chain of international commodities, international market. This is the main requirement for India. India is doing it. And this is where we will understand many industries, for example, textile, right? Export of agricultural products, export of gems and jewelry, export of processed oil, export of IT services, export of manufactured products. All of them India is trying to initiate with many countries, and India has in fact thrusted again and again on this. We will have two feature news on this in the coming weeks. One on free trade agreements and another one on external trade, India's external trade, which is only increasing with time. In fact, the latest external trade that India has had, it has initiated more manufactured items going abroad as compared to its service items. This is a great beneficial point for India. This is what India has done again with UAE, many other countries, UK, Australia, many other countries. Three important aspects of budget in the long-term implications. So long-term implications and budget, all we are looking at is how the capital expenditure is getting spent for our country. Increasing capital expenditure should not be at the cost of revenue expenditure. We will understand this in the feature news, cover it together along with it, right? What is the case study of the day? Today's case study is on the female solo traveler, lady from Kerala, and she has vouched to look at the diversity of the whole country and reach the Himalayan Mount Everest base camp based in Nepal, all safe and sound. So her prime agenda is to not only look at the diverse culture of India, but also to hitchhike to Himalayas from Kerala. So hitchhike basically means asking for lifts, asking for help from local people, and to be able to move with safety and security. This is the agenda of this lady, to remove the myth that India is unsafe for female travelers or people traveling alone. 50-day hitchhiking journey sends out the message that India is safe for women traveling alone, right? So this is a great leap forward. Who are these people? These are just amongst us doing this, conducting these various beautiful initiatives and presenting India in a good light. That is absolutely true. So the questions, let me look at this. We will discuss melting pot and the other one, both of them, salad ball. We'll discuss them, right? So if you like this initiative, share some love, and we will also meet quickly on the feature news discussion. Thank you for participating. Questions, please put them down, and we will get back on this. Thank you for participation.